The show must go on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna close out of this madness on my phone. I have no idea why it's not working. A lot of the friends I'm talking to use iPhone, but I have Android, so I'm gonna call Una, and then we'll get her on speaker at the very least. I was trying to show my screen too, but I guess I'm just gonna use this as like a little visual for everything. Whatever, just the show must go on, seriously. So let's call her. Let's call Una. Una is such a lovely person, seriously. You'll see. Okay. You live Facebook from your computer. Okay, I'm just gonna call her straight up phone if I don't run out of minutes. Gosh, I really have to knock on that. You ever met somebody who seems like they get the worst luck? Like they always get the short end of the stick. They don't necessarily complain about it, but it's just like super, super obvious that stuff just happens to them, like complicates things. That is totally me. And I've met a lot of people that I've read astrologies for where they have that kind of element in their chart that totally binds them and restricts them and causes them issues and stuff. And before I got this live event ready for today, I actually took a look at the astrology for today. And if you watched my last video, I talked about a lot of the days in this fire tiger month that are just nuts because they have these cat and dog type of scenarios with this element goes after that one directly, and they're trying to like one up each other, and the other one's trying to run away, and like that kind of stuff is big time happening this month. Video chat, you do live, yeah, well, okay, I'll do video chat. Sorry, I'm not the best multitasker. My mind will just go everywhere. So, okay. Woo, can you hear me? Okay, let me, hi everybody. This is Una, and this is my very manual way of creating a Facebook call. I was just mentioning earlier that this month in Chinese astrology is a fire tiger month that has tons and tons of days in it that have like fire versus water, or earth going after water, and like wood going after earth. It's all like this kind of dog versus cat kind of, I'm an energy and you know you're my weakness, oh my god, I gotta try and like run away from you type of thing. So there's this push and pull, ebb and flow, like I'm gonna dominate and I'm gonna try not to be dominated type of thing happening like day after day after day. It's been like a week and a half now where most of the days, with the exception of like one day that had all earth in it, which is a great day, I love that day, but most of the days were just like, let's go over here, and we're going to go over there, and oh, this isn't going to work, and oh, I'm going to try this, but nope, that's not going to happen. Like, that's just like, it's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a month that has so much of that going on. So what a great way to preface a video. And I might, I don't know if we're going to create a feedback loop, but if you go to the live event, can you see yourself and then comment, and then maybe you can, I'm trying to like get rid of my,
I was afraid it would be too much feedback or something.
Can you guys hear her? I think it's just you for now. My friend Bosco came on the last one. I tried doing it on here. But even if it's live, once it's over, it'll publish automatically to the page, and then people can go back and it'll still show that it's live, I guess, and say that it's ended. But it's really complicated. So if anybody's watching this and you're like, if you're literate with technology and you're not, you know, an embarrassing millennial like myself, I would love to hear like your suggestions or your instructions. I researched a ton of videos. I went on, you know, a lot of different forums and stuff and read about this, tried my very best to prepare for this. But honestly, I'm not surprised that this is happening. I really am not, especially now. So I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm not going to let it consume me because it very easily could. As you know, Una, I'm a pretty fiery guy. So let me put you up there. It's so bright today with all the sun. Ooh, okay, there we go. All right, so Una, how are you?
Good.
That's good. I've read Una 2 or 3 times. I've actually met her at a few events. One in Rochester, and the other one was it in Wisconsin? No, it was at the no, they
I
were
think they were both in Rochester.
yeah, they were both in Rochester
At
for the
spirituality.
the Women in Spirituality event. And she captivated me as someone coming up because I could tell instantly that she's like super, super receptive to not just me, but like everybody else at that event. Like, I think you also mentioned too that you were just picking up on everybody's stuff. And it was very emotional, and I got emotional at that event too. There was just so much going on. But as you guys might see here in this call, Una has a really unique chart, and she's extremely receptive to everything. She's like a sponge, and so she's very sensitive in that regard. So thank you for agreeing to this, because I know it's a little bit out of your comfort zone to do this.
No problem.
But let's get to it. So, well, unfortunately, I can't share this screen, so I'm just going to go here. So I'm going to Fate W, which is the Chinese site that I get all the data for. And I've got some videos up that I've made that show you how I get the raw data. So I'm going to do the same thing for Una. And Una, could you give me your birthday information?
Yes. 7/16/78.
Okay, 7/16. And what time of the day?
Around midnight.
Oh,
A
really?
little after midnight.
Oh, wow. Okay, a little after midnight, so like do like 5 minutes or so. And I also mentioned on a video before, if you don't know the exact time that you're born, a great way to try and get as accurate of a reading as you can is to get within the 2-hour increment that you might be born within. So in Chinese astrology, for the time pillar, there are 10 options. There are 10 segments of time in each day that account for the 24 hours of the day. And for example, like the water segment or the yang water segment is from like 11 p.m. until 12 a.m. or excuse me, until 1 a.m. And then from like 1:01 a.m. until 3 a.m. is the next segment, and so on. So if you happen to know, oh, I was born like 8:30-ish, that would be useful. We can use that. We can plug that in for sure. But it just gets tricky when people are born really close to like a transitory period. Like if they don't know if they're born like 5 minutes before 1 or 5 minutes after 1, that kind of situation. So, but we got you down here. So Una is a yin earth sign. So her perspective, like her set of eyes and in the way that she views and digests everything that she goes through in this life, comes from a perspective of yin earth. And yin earth is like, if you wanted to put a poetic scene to it, it's like this gorgeous pasture with rich, fertile soil, and is just inviting everything to it within that ecosystem. It's like the backbone. It's like the mother. When people talk about Mother Earth, this is the primal Mother Earth energy. So Una embodies that perspective from where she's coming from. So that's really cool. And she's loaded with her own element, Earth. And she's got a couple things here and there. But before I get into technicals and stuff, do you have any questions or any follow-up for this year? Or anything that you'd like to ask?
Just career-wise.
Career-wise. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that last time too. How are things going in that department?
Still.
It's challenging, right? Una does this You have a yoga studio,
I
right?
teach yoga.
Yeah, she
No, I
teaches.
don't have a studio. I just teach yoga.
That's right. Okay, so she teaches yoga, but then you asked last time if you wanted to, or if it was a good time to kind of open your own studio or like go your own path,
Yeah,
right?
like have collective space. Yeah.
Yes, because she was feeling overwhelmed by the coworkers and the people that were involved in that process. It wasn't that they were necessarily um, giving her a hard time, whether they realized it or not, but she was picking up on everything. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. I'm just trying to remember
No,
back.
you're right. You're
Okay.
right. And I left that environment about a year ago.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was a
I kind
very, very
doing solo work.
Okay, perfect. Because it's stifling, or it can be very stifling for a person with your
It's very heavy work. Very emotionally draining.
Now, one thing I want to mention too that applies to everyone, including myself, everybody. When, or most of us, I want to say like 99% of everybody that I've ever read, we're comfortable with what we know and what we've been used to, with what we're endowed with. And the analogy I like to use all the time with everyone is, if life is a poker game, this kind of astrology just shows us what our hand is and how we can play our hand. And so most people get used to a certain way of how they play their hand. And the usual scenario is, okay, I've got a ton of earth. I'm going to gravitate towards all these earthy things. I'm going to operate in an earthy way. And a lot of this is just intuitive, like people don't think about it. They just do it automatically, subconsciously. But for you, it made sense to me when you first sat down with me, when I first met you, that you were so inclined to yoga and also dance. I want to tell everybody, she does this really cool dance thing. And I'll have to try and maybe be part of it someday, where she does like surprise, like if you look on YouTube, like their flash mob dancing. So cool. She orchestrates that, which is like a fiery thing. That's totally fire, because it's like in the open, like communicating directly with people. It's warm, it's bustling, it's charismatic, and it's lively. It's like movement, it's fire, right? And fire supports her earth. So it makes her feel like she's got a kind of support network or a kind of cheerleading squad. But yoga itself is so earthy. It's like one of the earthiest activities you can engage in, other than hiking. And it makes sense that someone who is an earth sign endowed with so much earth, that they would only be naturally inclined towards things like that, that remind them of their own energetic signature and their own utility, I guess you could say. So it's a challenge for a lot of people, just in general, to use what they have accordingly, because most people are not familiar, or are not they want to guarantee, right? So they want to do things the way they've always been doing. So if they step outside of their comfort zone, even if it's what's really actually good for them, there's a lot of obstacles to that. And we can see synchronicity in this with a lot of other dualities or other modalities, like with other astrologers or like readers and things, because if you want growth to happen in anything in our lives, it's never going to be comfortable. It's usually uncomfortable, because you have to shed a skin, right? It's like when the lobster sheds its skin. It's not necessarily a comfortable process. It's not necessarily a safe process, right? Because in order to grow, you have to be vulnerable to certain new things, or to certain ideas, or what you're going to do. When we face our fears, especially, that's always uncomfortable. But there's something innate within us as human beings that knows what we have to do as opposed to what we want to do. So there's that big divide. So with you, because you need, I think, was it metal? Let me go back here. You need metal and wood, right? Let me just confirm that before I talk ahead of myself.
Right.
Yep. wood and metal in that order. Because you need those two things, it's super beneficial for you personally to extrapolate from the world. So instead of absorbing and feeling and letting the world go through you viscerally, let it be a little bit more topical in nature, in the sense that you're going to analyze and be aware of things that way. So in that sense, wood would be like education, trying new things, putting yourself out there, collecting information. If you think about a library, I use this analogy all the time. A library is so wood. That's like wood incarnate, 100%. Because you go in there, the whole idea of a library is not to be simple, is not to deduce everything that we have to offer from humanity that's been written down into a single point. No. It's the exact opposite. It's to grow up. It's to branch out, right? So if you plant something in the ground, you expect that plant to be exponential in its growth. So the sprout comes up, it's one little thingy, and then it divides and becomes 2, divides becomes 4, divides becomes 8, etc. That's the whole idea behind wood. That's the whole jam of wood. I'm going to try and block out the sun there. There we go. Oh, I think my arm's going to get tired from this. But
Mine too.
oh yeah. Well, I'll figure it out one of these days, but I appreciate you going forward with this. It's really helpful, and it's really cool to do this. So with work. Now, work in general for Una is received as water. So in her perspective, wherever there's water energy, there's opportunity for work, in the sense that it's acquiring material possession for the sake of sustaining oneself. That kind of work, that kind of prostration. It's slightly different from the kind of work that people often refer to with like artists, people who have something to say, people who have something to provide to the world, more than just something material. So Una's work is water. Now she's challenged with that because she needs wood and metal at the same time. So the work that's best for her in general is going to be a kind of work that incorporates these types of elements, rather than what she would traditionally or be used to seeing as work in her perspective. So education, I always thought education would be a great way for you to really supplant yourself. So one takeaway, I guess I could say immediately, just in general, before we really dive into the nitty gritty of this year for you, month by month, that a great way to reach an audience, or to build an audience, or to gather people that are interested, is to network in a very wood type manner. So talk about superfluosity, lots of variety, lots of options. When you go into a buffet, a lot of people like to eat at buffets simply because there's this notion that I get to go in, I get to choose from all these things. They're all there. It gives people a certain sense of security, or a certain sense of empowerment, that there are simply many options to choose from, where it's like, I can think back like in the Soviet Union, when they had like three products you could buy at the grocery store, because, back in Soviet Russia, grocery store, choose you kind of idea. It's not like that. Like, the best thing for you is to be like, well, here's the buffet. I have this to offer. I have that to offer. Like with yoga, if you want to grow that and be independent from that, a great idea would be to create like webinars or simple like videos like this, and just create like series or playlists, and have a lot of different variety, right? So maybe if I can't remember what version of yoga you specialize in, but you could do like hatha yoga and like yin yoga and like this kind of Vinasaya yoga and all of this and all of that, and provide small little chunks that are easily digestible. Because you, and I think me and a lot of other people who have a lot of earth in them, always tend to like go right to like the depth of things. Like if you engage people in conversation, it's hard for you to stay topical for too long, I feel. Like you'll just automatically just boom, dive way in there. That's totally an earth thing, because earth is all about weight. It's all about substance, right? Because without substance, stuff can't happen. And without substance, there can't be a ground in which we can do our things atop, right? We can't walk unless there's a ground. You know, we can't paint unless there's a canvas. We can't feel unless there's reception of what needs to be felt, right? So that's all earthy goodness. So with yoga, if you want to keep doing the yoga thing, make it as wooden as you possibly can. I'm trying not to bury you, because I'm burying you right now with all this. I'm giving you very little time to talk. So if you've got something to say, I'll shut up.
No, I'm good. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm good.
And let's dive in a little bit further with that, because this year is 2019, and 2019 is a special year. I made a video about it that talks about the earth pig. So we've got the earth pig. Now, in general, the pig itself is a watery animal with a little bit of wood as well. So primarily it's yang water, and secondarily it's yin wood, or excuse me, yang wood. So in that sense, the wood is beneficial to you because the pig is resourceful. So there's opportunity for resources. And from your vantage point, especially right now in the dead of winter, when we're having all these ice storms and all this water's rage, like water is going pretty hardcore in the feng shui, in the environment right now. So that definitely affects all of us. That water has the potential to feed potential resources for you. So it could play out like this. Like you could see right now a whole lot of opportunity for you to work, just to put your head down and pile drive resources, provide resources for yourself, for your family, whatever you want these resources for. So you have an immense potential for that right now, especially because it's not only just a pig year, but right now, as we're transiting into the springtime, we've got a lot of water energy as well. A little bit of metal too, which is super good for you also. But water nourishes plants. We water our plants to grow them. So water feeds wood. It's the next sequence in the 5 phases. Water dies to create wood. Wood dies to create fire. Fire dies to create earth, etc., etc. So that's just in general. Now the earth part of the pig is where you'll have a bit of challenge, because earth is no good for you, because you're already, like you've got 2,000% of your daily allowance that you need. So it's overkill. And what that ends up doing in general for the year is creating what I call a temperamental pig. So it's a pig that feels this immense drive to go where it can, where it may, where it wants to resource, but it gets stopped in its tracks along certain points to kind of reflect and think, am I doing the right thing? So it's kind of like a kid who wants to go swimming in the ocean for the first time, and they're like really, really hyped and like, oh my God, the ocean, it's so cool. They get on their swimming gear, and then they walk out to the beach, and then at the very last minute to think, oh God, this is kind of scary. So it's like they feel that immense drive. They want to dive right in, but they hesitate. So this is going to be a theme for you, and be especially aware of this when the seasons change from winter to spring, spring to summer, summer to fall. These 4 time periods, and they're usually 2 to 3 weeks apiece, have immense earthly energy coming to them from the earthly branches, a little bit from the heavenly stems too, but primarily from the earthly happenings that are going about in this year. And so let's look more specifically. That was just a general glimpse at the year for most people and how it applies to you, but each person has a 10-year cycle and a 60-year cycle that work. I wish I could show you this as a visual, maybe for the next video, guys. But there are basically 2 wheels or gears, I guess you could say, that create the algorithm that that is this form of Chinese astrology. This form of Chinese astrology is very, very calculative. It's not just, ooh, inspiration, and I'm going to channel and all of this. It's not like that. It's not a form of divination whatsoever. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that come through while doing this. But so in that sense, it's not going to tell you the future, but it's going to tell you this is what's going on. So, be mindful of it and use this to your advantage, or realize that this is what's maybe causing you some issues, et cetera, et cetera. But Una's 10-year cycle, currently, she entered it in 2011. So 2011 started a new 10-year cycle. This year, 2019, is the second to last year of Yin Mao, which is basically a supercharged yin wood decade. So in that sense, this is a super great decade for you, and it has been. Immense potential from the heavenly energy, because the 10-year cycle is attributed to the heavenly stems. Immense potential for you to have resources for branching out, for adding new things, for trying new things, for meeting new people, for having new ideas come to you that you might not have been able to conjure up yourself just from observing, but rather from a point of, some people sit back and observe, other people initiate. You have a lot of potential to initiate things, but it's likely going to feel uncomfortable because you perceive this as a kind of invasion, as a kind of discipline. And in fact, it really is. And so in some sense, and I don't know if I told you this before when we were reading you before, but you lack discipline in a certain way. Because you want to absorb everything, you want to feel everything, but you really shouldn't. Certain people should and certain people should not. You're one of those people that should not. So it's all about balance. I have the exact same thing with me too. I've got way too much fire and I need water. And water goes right at fire, right? Just like wood goes right at earth. It gets in there, it pokes, it gets its roots tangled up, and it dives straight in there, and it's like, ooh, it's invasive. It feels like that, right? Like water so often pisses me off, but now that I've, been reading this kind of stuff and have really gotten interested in Chinese astrology so much, I realize in my own life that, okay, yeah, maybe that pisses me off, but step back a little bit after my emotions do the run through, look at it from that perspective and realize, okay, this is an opportunity for me to trim the excess. Like I'm burning too hot. I'm burning too fast and out of control. I need to focus it a little more. So in a sense, you need to focus that too. Don't be so heavy with stuff. Don't just boom, here's what I've got. Like you have a tendency to kind of rely on that. So discipline yourself. I know it sounds bad, but it's really, really very helpful for you. So that's the 10-year cycle that she's in. And within the 10-year cycle you're in, we've also got the earth pig, like I said before. So we've got water, earth, and wood. So really not so bad. You've got a decent year ahead of you with tons and tons of opportunity. And if you play your cards right, it won't be very challenging for you to accomplish those things. But the theme is going to be get outside of your comfort zone with complexity, with variety, with how about this, how about that? Oh gosh, well, I never would have considered that before. Give it a try. It'll definitely feel uncomfortable. It'll definitely feel restricting. But in those moments, try to be aware that this can be a very beneficial form of discipline. Because it can yield great things for you. So just the metaphysical, I guess you could say, niche market, if you want to call it. I don't like to see it as a market, but there's a demand for stuff like this, for healing modalities, for diving further, for self-exploration. We haven't really been doing this as human beings for a long time, and for the first time with culture and technology, and a word that I hate very much, globalism, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, globalism does have, a good mark on the world in the sense that it's connecting people. I'm able to call you right now, even with all the technical difficulties, I'm still able to hold a phone up to a Facebook Live event and then do this, So hopefully next time it'll be better. But, there's always, because I could have myself been like, oh, this is terrible, let's not do it anymore, whatever, and have to do it my way. But there's so much water going on right now, and I'm aware myself what water's impact is on me. So it's always there to put me in my place, to put me in my corner and say, dude, too hot, like cool down, like this ain't gonna happen, let it go. That's not happening, let it go, move on.
I guess I have a more career question.
Okay.
I've been really missing dance, and I've been feeling more called to do that lately, and maybe that would be a better energy for me anyway.
Dance. It could.
Performing, choreography, performing.
Now, I'm not going to say no, but for you, metal is good. So actually, to be blunt and straight and to the point is actually a good thing for you. So I would say yes and no. The yes part is that you have the opportunity to congregate, meaning that you can, for lack of a much better term, collect people around you within the circumstances you engage within and use that as a networking tool. And in that sense, teaching the dance, instructing the dance, helping others to empower themselves through dance, rather than being like a contractor, an educator.
Totally.
An educator is where that's at. That's where I would say, hone in on that. Don't spread yourself so thin with all of those endeavors. Dance very generally in and of itself is fire. So if you happen to teach dance, that would be like, okay, we've got some wood and some fire. So you've got a really hot fire. So that could be good. It could be challenging. It could be reinforcing all of the things that you want to grow from. So you could have some challenges with it as well. I'm just being really honest with you.
Sure. No, I started a class last June and it hasn't really taken off, but I love teaching it. So
oh yeah.
I'm gonna keep doing it.
Oh yeah. Education is such a great environment for you. Just having a class, being a congregation point, but it's the difference between wood and fire. Wood and fire are very similar, but fire processes what is gathered. Wood simply is just gathering, and letting the process take place wherever it wants to. But fire always takes the initiative to process things. I mean, when people sit down with me, you can see me. I'm 50% fire by volume. I'm a chatty guy. And if you give me material, I'm going to consume it and I'm going to process it and I'm going to give you a product, right? My product is earth. So in that sense, when I first read you, I was like, oh gosh, I got to go light on her because she's going to be like you're gravitated towards me with energy because our energy is familiar. I'm very earthy, I'm very fiery, and fire supports you. But, you know, people like me in situations that embody the type of energy that I embody with you is going to reinforce everything that makes you immobilized or content, because you have the tendency to get very content with things, and you seek those situations. The first
stagnant.
Yeah, I do too as well. Like Earth has that issue. But the first thing I thought of in my mind is like people that like to hanker down at their house and like sink into their sofa and just watch Netflix for like, or they'll binge Netflix for like 20 hours in a row. That's a pretty earthy activity, if I do say so myself. Yeah. So dance is fine. Instructing it, oh my gosh, right where it's at. So we've got Jason. Hey, Jason. You might be the only person watching this right now. If you can hear it, give me a like or a thumbs up or a comment or whatnot. I'm pretty technologically handicapped for today, but I'm making it happen somehow, just making it happen. So, I made a video a while ago. I was just so angry a few days ago because I had lost 3 videos. I tried recording 3 videos and they were amazing videos. They were so good. I read 2 people that had never had Chinese astrology readings before, and I captured their initial reactions, which I'm really trying to show, because this isn't scripted at all. And this is just totally, it has nothing to do with you knowing a person or you being familiar with someone, like having a friend for a long time. Because the person who taught me this, who first got me into this, he knew me in college, but not that well. And when he read it, I was flabbergasted. I was like, what the heck? Where did he get this from? Like, I was just super, super intrigued. And, you know, I just had to keep learning it. So there's a lot of dimensions to it for sure. I'm trying to block out the sun so that it doesn't blind us. But yeah, we can end it pretty soon if you got places to go and people to see, or if you have other questions, I can keep going if you want. But this year, Una, is going to be a great year. As long as you work on yourself and try new things, you'll be fine. Just be careful, like I said, when we've got a lot of earth going on in the environment, and that's when the seasons change. So we live on the northern hemisphere where there's 4 seasons and not just 2. So it's extra pertinent for us to be aware of that. Yeah, you've got great potential this year. Some people this year, I read another friend, Allison, she has a very, very challenging year this year. So you can be quite thankful that.
Yeah, well, I think my previous ones have been.
Yeah, you've had.
Earth, I said.
Yeah, you had a rough patch. Let me go back down to that area of the graph. Well, when you were born, well, actually from age 3 to 12, from 81 to 90 was the very first 10-year cycle that you were within. The 10-year cycle is also called the Da Yun for anybody that's into this and you want to research it from the Chinese side. But like super, super earth, very earthy, very fiery. So the 2 things that reinforced you. So growing up would have been hard. It's a lot of suffocation and what's the word? Like, I don't want to say it, but like babying, like, oh, this is fine here, like coddling, I guess you could say. Like a form of support, but a form of support that steps on your own toes. It doesn't give you the free rein to express yourself. It's like almost as if someone stepped in to take over for what you should have as your own voice. Yep. And then, and then from 91 to 2000, that was the second 10-year cycle. That was all fire. So a little bit better. And certain years here and there within that decade that that changed up the circumstances, that stirred up the variables to make certain years really, really beneficial. Like in 92, you had all of the heavenly stems transform into wood, and all of the earthly branches transformed to water. Or excuse me, not transformed, they were all water. So all the earthly energy was water, and all the heavenly energy was wood. So water plus wood just equals strong wood. So you had a lot of opportunity when you were 14 to try new things, to get engaged with new social groups, and experiment, which would have been beneficial for you, for sure. So, and now that you're in your fifth, this is the fifth 10-year cycle, that, or the fourth one, I think, right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that this one is really stellar. It's really good. And even when you enter the next 10-year cycle in 2021, that's going to be all wood. Like, so it's going to be super, super awesome. You're going to find yourself with a lot of new possibilities coming to you where you don't necessarily really even have to search yourself. Like, there's just going to be this person reaching out. Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be really cool. Okay. Well, I probably get some criticism for talking so much again, but I tried to, I'll do my best. I'll do better next time, but thank you so much, Una, for this. I really appreciate it. And I knew it was going to be a blast. It's always fun talking to you and reading you, because you really listen to this stuff and you kind of get it.
I absorb.
Oh yeah, master absorber. You definitely are. Okay, so yeah, I guess we can end it now, unless you have any other questions or any comments or anything. Let me go check the live feed. Yeah, Jason's still just on it. So yeah, gosh, it's getting so bright in here. Sorry guys, it's just like whitewashing everything. I'm trying to, let's go over here. Ah, well, I hope that was beneficial for you all. If you have comments, suggestions, also, if you know technology, if you know how to use Facebook, if you know a screen recording software that I can use from my Chromebook that won't accidentally delete my videos, that would be awesome. Just send me a link or send me, you know, a little tidbit here and there and just be like, hey, have you checked this out? Or anything. I'm wide open for those suggestions, guys. So thanks again, Una, and maybe we'll see you later, or back at the Women in Spirituality conference. I think that's coming up, actually. Well,
Sounds good.
6 months or so.
In the fall.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks again, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, I'm still